a life-changing event happened to me. He appeared right in front of me. We go on to have like this 20-minute conversation.
Did you appear like in the flesh? Would you think he was like in his fleshy body, basically?
No, it was definitely like a ghost. 3 days later, I found out on social media that he had died that day. And I am trying to find excuses to explain this away. So I started studying religions. I started studying humanity. I started studying culture. Pretty much, here's the three things that humanity has had in common. First thing is
So we're back. This is Amani, and
Dina.
yeah, and we decided to call this conversation that we're going to have higher conversation. So that's kind of the name we came upon. So we had one last week, or whenever you're viewing this, there's another episode that you can see before this one. We're gonna have another one today, and I appreciate you making some time, Dina.
I am so happy to be here. I'm excited about this one too.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're able to talk about some other things other than just getting out of the cult. So this is the area of interest that I really have, and I think we connected through our original conversation, which I'm glad we connected on that way.
Right. Me too. Me too. You know what I love about this conversation is when I first started talking about these more, I don't know what the word for it is, esoteric,
Hmm.
otherworld, higher conversations.
Hmm.
The very first, I didn't talk about it for a long time. And when I finally did, I was shocked at the number of people who responded and said, "Oh my God, something like that has happened to me too." Or, "Oh my goodness." It's like everybody is all, shh, let's not tell anybody because somebody's going to think we're crazy. And I think I finally just decided I don't care if people think I'm crazy. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I think there's most people don't really understand or don't get it, so you have this kind of fear that people won't get you or understand you.
Mhm.
But now with the internet, there's so many different videos and so many genres of information. It's like whatever, take it or leave it. And
Yeah,
if you're XJW and you don't resonate with any of this material, just discard it. You don't have to believe it. It's what
exactly.
I tend to think about. It's what I believe in. And Dina tends to think a lot in a lot of the same ways, which is what I appreciate. But because even with my wife, I wasn't able to talk to her for so many years about what I was going through when I was awakening. She just didn't get it. And so it's like this loneliness that you feel that you kind of get
Right.
used to. But it's important to have these kind of conversations and to find a community of people who think that way.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree 100%.
Yeah, so this week we're gonna have another one of those conversations. And after we started posting last week, we had a comment from someone who obviously resonated with our video. Let me read this comment. This is from Heather Wilson. She says that some years ago I had a striking dream, followed immediately by a bizarre real life experience that made me think that I was getting a message from my dad. And so that's kind of in alignment with what we were talking about. So I guess, we're going to take a more in-depth look at those ideas of communicating with the other side. And I don't even look at it like a person dies. Well, of course, before we're born, we're somewhere. And after we die, we go somewhere. It's probably the same place, is kind of how I think about it. But what do you take about that comment or that message, Dina? What do you take away from that?
Well, I think I'd back up for just a second and say that when I spent 38 years in the religion, so
Hmm.
the Jehovah's Witnesses beliefs are there is nothing. You're dead. There's nothing before, there's nothing after. So I came from 38 years of that really hardcore background. And when I left the religion, I went kind of in the atheist. I don't believe in anything. Everything's crap. I don't believe in anything. So I'll preface that story by saying that those were my beliefs when a life-changing event happened to me. So I'll describe that life-changing event. I had I'll preface it by saying I had an uncle who was in the cult, also, like fourth generation, hardcore elder. He had been shunning me, and but prior to the shunning, we were very, 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 very close. He didn't have any kids. I was like the favorite niece that was going to take care of him. So we had a very close relationship. And then the shunning happened. So I had been shunned for, I think it was about 2 years. I'm in this, I don't believe in anything, atheist kind of mindset. And I was sitting on the couch. It was probably about 7 o'clock in the evening. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking, I wasn't watching weird movies. I was reading a book on psychology, and he appeared right in front of me, right in front of me. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Honey, I'm so sorry. I thought we were doing the right thing and I was wrong." And we go on to have like this 20-minute conversation that was so relevant, so specific in details. It wasn't just some sort of like vague thing. I mean, these were very specific details about our relationship, about our belief system that we had shared. And it was it, it was a it was a sense of calm. It wasn't scary or anything like that. It was just this warm sense of peace, and it was probably the most spiritual experience I think I had ever had. Spending all those years in the cult, all that time dedicated to God, this was the first experience I had ever had that felt truly connected to the universe, so real and so relevant. So when it was over, I'm sure you can imagine how I felt. I was like, "Ugh, what the heck was that?" Like, what?
Mhm.
What made it even weirder was because I was excommunicated, 3 days later, I found out on social media that he had died that day. So, I didn't even know I didn't even know he was dead.
So did he appear like in the flesh? Would you think he was like in his fleshy body basically?
No, it was definitely like a ghost. It
Okay.
was definitely like some sort of spirit form,
Okay.
but very much in his form, very much his voice,
Hmm.
very much things that he would say to me. So, my highly analytical mind, I am trying to find excuses to explain this away.
Like, were you
If I
high? Were you
had
drunk? What was going on?
Yeah, no, nothing. I'm like totally, totally, totally I wasn't doing any of that. If I'd have known he was dead, I would have chalked it up as my imagination. If I'd have been drinking or smoking or hallucinogens or whatever, I would have chalked it up as that. If I'd have been even on some sort of spiritual quest, wondering what happens, I might have been able to explain it away. But none of that was the case. I even I even thought, oh, I wonder if the demons are trying to trick me. I was like, well,
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense because I'm an apostate atheist. I am like solid in their camp.
Right.
you know, I could not find anything to justify it away. And so that kind of started me on this quest of, okay, then, all right, well, religion didn't cut it. And obviously, atheism doesn't quite cover it either, because that was the most real experience I had ever experienced up until that point.
Mhm. So how did you continue to have these conversations? Did this go on? Did you have conversations with other beings? What happened for that?
Not at that time. That was the first one. So it did kind of trigger me to kind of start investigating spirituality at a deeper level, though. I had always believed in the law of attraction, but not because of a spiritual standpoint, but more of like the quantum physics, the
Right.
science part of how energy works, how your thoughts work. But that experience kind of set me more on this, okay, let's go on the spiritual side and let's figure out what the heck was this. And I thought you said something, energy doesn't die. And so that was kind of what I started with, was what could be the potential scientific explanation for what's going on here. And that was one of the things that kept sticking with me is, okay, energy doesn't die, it transforms from one shape to another,
Hmm.
but it doesn't stop existing. So I started studying religions, I started studying humanity, I started studying culture, because I guess my opinion was, if I could figure out what everybody had in common, excuse me, maybe that would give me a place to start. So I started reading every spiritual writing. I mean, it was like this huge exploration process for me. So pretty much, here's the three things that humanity has had in common. First thing is, there is a source, there's a creator, there's an
Hmm.
origin, there's some sort of divine, higher consciousness up there. All humanity, for the history of forever, they've always had that kind of concept. The second thing that everybody has in common is we are children of that source, that humans are different, that we have the ability to create, to imagine, to have spirituality, unlike animals, as far as we know. And the third thing that everybody has in common is that there is life after death, whether they call it reincarnation, whether they've had the belief that they can connect with their ancestors. Pretty much every humanity, culture, race across the board has always had those three things. From there, it all kind of goes sideways, and religion kicks in and starts forming those beliefs. But those were the three things. And I thought, okay, I can live with that. I can live with that. On a slightly different topic, then the question became, okay, if there is a divine source and we're children of the source, does it automatically mean he needs to be worshiped?
Hmm.
I thought, well, we used a scripture in Hebrews that said every house is created by someone, and he that
Hmm.
created all things is God, therefore worship him. But I thought, well, that doesn't necessarily make sense because I have an engineer that built my house.
And do you
And
worship him?
yeah, he doesn't ask for anything. And I thought, okay, so maybe this divine source isn't requiring anything of us. Maybe it's just there to support us. Maybe it's there to communicate with us, but there are no requirements to be connected with it. Because when that happened with my uncle, I wasn't doing anything to connect. I wasn't asking for answers. I wasn't begging the universe. I wasn't mourning. I wasn't grieving. I didn't even know.
You weren't meditating anything.
No,
Hmm.
no, I wasn't meditating or anything. So from there, and I would actually say that that was probably part of the delay in strengthening my apparent connection with the other world, because at that time I was in a very secular world. I had a career, and I was not meditating. I mean, I was reading, I was learning, but I wasn't really asking the universe for help. I wasn't putting the spiritual side in. I was putting the intellectual side in, but not the energetic side so much. So I had a couple of other, I would do like mild meditations, like maybe 15, 20 minutes or something like that. And since that initial event, I always felt like he was close to me. Like I would feel like I could hear his advice. But again, I was very skeptical, very skeptical. Like maybe I'm making this up. I don't care if I'm making it up. It was really good advice anyway. I'm pretty practical that way. And so the second time I had an incident happen was about 5 years ago when I moved down here to Ecuador. And at the time, I didn't really realize what had happened. In fact, this happened 5 years ago, and I just put the final pieces together about 6 months ago.
Wow.
So what had happened was I had moved here to Ecuador, and I met with my landlord, who would become my engineer who built this house. Is a very, very close friend now. But this was the first time we had ever sat down, we would ever met. We were at a cafe, and it was just the two of us. And I'm just going to say ghost because there's not really any other word for it. There was a ghost at the table there with us.
Did you
I
see
had
him or did you sense him? How'd you know?
both. I would say visual, it's probably about 30%. But the feeling, the 70% was, oh my God, this ghost is looking at me. Does anybody else see this? Am I crazy? Who the heck is this? What does it want? And there were no words. He didn't say anything. He was just sitting at the table with us. It was the strangest, weirdest thing. And I never told anybody. I never said a word. So over the next 5 years, my friend had told me that he had a brother who had committed suicide. And I'd heard a lot of stories about his older brother and how he committed suicide when he was younger. And still I never even thought anything about that. And then 6 months ago, my friend says, I have a niece and she really needs some help. Can you help her? And so I said yes. I was going to give her a plant medicine treatment. She'd suffered from a lot of depression, just a lot of energetic problems her whole life. And so she ended up being the daughter of the brother that had committed suicide.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not connecting any of these dots. I have nothing whatsoever. So she's here, and as she's going through her treatment, as she's going through her therapy, it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience for her. And she says, you know what? She says, I have always felt like I've been haunted by my dad's spirit. He had actually committed suicide when her mother was pregnant, so she'd never even really met her dad. And she says, I've always felt like his spirit has been attached to me. And she looks at me and she says, you know, she says, my dad has been pushing me to come here to you. She says, my dad met you 5 years ago in a cafe with my uncle. And he knew ever since then that this is the path that we needed for us to heal. And my mind was like, what the literal heck? Like, what the
Mhm.
heck? I had never told anybody that. I didn't even realize who that ghost was in the
Right.
cafe until she said that. There's no way she could have known that. There's absolutely no way she could have known that. I hadn't told a soul. And then he appeared. He appeared. And he just said, I don't know how to let go. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to let go. And so I had a conversation and I just said, well, you're not you're not helping them here. You're not helping your brothers, you're not helping your mother, you're not helping your daughter. You're actually energetically holding them back. So you need to bless and release. You need to continue on your journey. You have a journey. You have other things that you have to learn and other ways to grow. And he says, "Well, how do I do that?" And I said, "Well, try doing it in a dream. Try just telling them that you love them, that and you're moving on." And so then he just kind of vanished. Then he just kind of disappeared. And then my friend the next day says, I hadn't told him any of this either. He says, you know what? He says, I dreamed about my brother last night. He says, and I feel like it's going to be the last time because I feel like he's finally moved on.
Wow.
My head blows up. My head totally.
Mhm.
So, and I will say, okay, so the original event happened 5 years ago. In the last 5 years, I've had a lot of other experiences. And we could do other videos on some of those other experiences. I know we're kind of trying to keep these at 30 minutes instead of
Trying to. I figured this one might go a little bit long.
6 hours. But I wanted to share that one because I really love the experiences where there's no logical explanation
Explanation.
whatsoever.
How would you know? Yep.
There's no logical explanation for that. I mean, there have been experiences where people have come here and they say, hey, you know what, help me talk to my mother or whatever. And
Mhm.
maybe those fall a little bit in the mystical woo woo,
Yeah.
no tangible evidence there whatsoever. But that specific instance was like, what the heck? There's no possible explanation for that whatsoever, other than there's a universe out there that we were not told about, that we have not been taught about.
Yeah, and when I think back to how I was raised, being a Jehovah's Witness, we put the peg our future on the earthly hope or the heavenly hope or being resurrected or being back in our eternal bodies that live forever and ever. But
Mhm.
now that I've had some more experiences in life, I'm of the feeling that we're basically consciousness. These bodies are temporary vehicles, and that our consciousness is everlasting, it's really eternal, and
Yeah.
that this is what's temporary is the body is temporary. How does that line up with kind of the things that you believe in or things you've learned?
I've absolutely decided that I'm voting for some sort of reincarnation. And I say voting, I say that kind of with a smile
Yeah,
because I'm not in a cult. So it means that I can upgrade or update that
or
belief
change your mind at
yeah,
any time.
change
Yep.
that anytime I want. But for right now, that seems like it makes the most sense to me. That we're here to learn something, that there are lessons, that there's growth for us to do, and we're on a mission for that. I do believe, I mean, I didn't always believe this, but I also believe that there is an other world of beings, whether they be, I mean, I won't pretend to say that I know their origin, but there is another world that's out there ready to help us, that's ready to step in with a hand and say, you're asking, you want help, you need advice, here you go,
Hmm.
there is absolutely something else out there that's there to assist us on the journey. And again, going back to my other the other thing that I was expressing about worship not being it. Worship is not growth. Worship is obeisance. Worship is groveling. It
Begging, begging
Yep, never
forgiveness.
exactly. It's never being worthy. It's never being good enough. And that even if you take it from the biblical standpoint, that was not originally how it was designed. It was
Hmm.
you're made in God's image. You're children of God. And then they have their ideas about sin and stuff like that. But you know what? Not every nation in the world believes that. There are indigenous people here in Ecuador. Well, obviously they're more familiar with Christianity now, but the concept of, sin and unworthiness and disconnected from God because of sin is just like, wow, that's really terrible. We're connected with God every single day.
Hmm.
They don't hesitate if they feel like they have a communication from their ancestors. They're thrilled to
Yeah.
have kind of experiences. It's not something that frightens them, and it's not something that they reject, which I think our culture, westernized society, westernized Christian society, we've been disconnected from our spiritual roots
That's
because
what
of
I
that.
was gonna say. Yep.
It's
It's
like our
almost
spiritual.
like modern day Christianity kind of separates you from the root of everything. Like you're disconnected from your ancestors, disconnected from the earth, disconnected from nature.
Mhm.
And that's
100.
really what will bring us into alignment.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, reconnecting that is so, 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 so important. And it probably starts with our beliefs. So if we have a minute, I kind of want to rant on that for a second
Yeah, please
because
do. Yeah, it's all good. We can riff a little bit.
okay, our beliefs are really what shapes our reality and our experiences. Because I had a family member when I had originally shared my experience with my uncle. I had a family member that got kind of irritated and they were like, "Well, how come he hasn't appeared to me?" Well, I think there is a very scientific neurological reason for that. The human mind takes in approximately 11 million bits of data per second. And our unconscious mind can only process about 40,000. And then consciously, we're only aware of up to 40. So, how does your mind choose which 40,000 bits of information out of 11 million to pick? Well, the filtering is a lot our belief systems. So, if you don't believe, or even contrary, you are very firmly believe that there is nothing after life, it could be staring you right in your face, and your
You're just
brain's
not
going to
gonna see the
filter it
message.
out.
Yep.
And your brain's going to filter it out. It's like, have you ever lost your keys and you search for them for 3 hours and they're right there on the table in front of you? Our
Hmm.
mind has the ability to do that because of the overwhelming abundance of information that the brain is processing. So, if your belief is when you're dead, there's nothing, well, then you could have a ghost right in front of you and your brain's going to discard that. 11 million, your brain is only filtering 40,000 out of 11 million. That means you're discarding 10,960,000 bits of information, and your dead loved ones could be one of them. If your
Hmm.
brain has decided that that's not true, that's fake, that's farce, that's bull, you won't be able to see it. So I think part of what had happened to me, I think, is I was in this atheist state when the first event happened with my uncle. But I was more in a state of, I have no freaking idea what I believe. It wasn't like a hardcore, I hate everything, I believe nothing. You see the difference between the dogmatism and I don't freaking know what I believe.
Hmm.
I think that was what gave it an opening. I think that was what gave it the opening, that
Or
my mind was.
maybe spirit felt that there was an opening for them to communicate with you and that you would be more receptive to it at that point.
Could be, because like
Yeah.
I said, I am voting for reincarnation. So maybe there's something about my past lives where maybe I had these gifts in the past. I honestly believe that we all have these gifts.
I believe so too.
I 100% believe that. And I know that in my case, they didn't really, really start coming out until I think I was probably 40 or 41 when that happened.
Hmm.
Um, I think that kids are also very, very, very sensitive.
Very.
Very sensitive. They've got their imaginary friends. Well, what if their imaginary friends aren't imaginary friends? What if they have a stronger connection? because their filtering system in the brain hasn't been infected with limiting beliefs that block it out.
From society, exactly. From their
Ex-
environment, from society, from their parents,
exactly.
teachers, their peers. Yep.
Exactly. Because you know what? I do remember feeling like I had invisible friends when I was a little kid. And as soon as I would say something about it, my family, my parents are really quick to say, "That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Hmm.
That's not true." And a young child trusts their parents. So, okay, if my parents are telling me that I'm making this up, okay, my brain, your filtering system for the brain goes, "Okay, my parents are right. I'm making this up." And then all of a sudden you don't see your special friends anymore.
Hmm.
And we think we outgrew it. Did we outgrow it? Or did that filtering mechanism in our brain change enough that we started blocking it and filtering it out?
That reminds me of when my son was like maybe 2 or 3. He said, "Yeah, Daddy, I have a third eye." I said, "Where's your third eye, Devin?" He pointed to his forehead. He's like, "It's right here."
Yeah,
I don't know how he knew that. But yeah.
exactly. 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 I really believe it's because children have not formed those filters yet that start blocking out all of these gifts that we are all born with and that we're all here to develop, I would say, too. Because when you look at humanity right now, I think part of the conflicts, part of the division, part of the problems that humanity is facing right now, a lot of it has to do with our lack of connection to source.
Hmm.
I fully, fully feel and believe with my whole heart that I am connected energetically to every human on the planet. What
Yep.
happens to you happens to me. And I'm really in a place of I love people. I don't judge them. I understand their limiting beliefs. And what would the world be like if we were all able to access that? It would be a completely, completely different version of humanity. It would be paradise.
Yeah, I believe that we're evolving the mankind as a collective consciousness. We're kind of evolving to more of that state. And as we move forward, the more people will be waking up to their gifts as well.
I hope so. I
That's
hope
my
so.
theory. That's my theory, at least.
That is my belief too. I think even the message that we were talking about last week was that kind of message. It's a message of hope. It's a
Hmm.
message of urgency. And you know what? Maybe there is a little bit of urgency to um, not wait in developing these gifts. I'm not getting any younger here. You
Me
know?
neither. So, as an update, what have you learned since we had our last conversation about your guides, about mother? Have you had any other conversations?
No, you know what? I've been really thinking more about the life after death aspect. Actually, on my YouTube channel, I've actually been focusing a lot on world events. I've been putting out
Hmm.
a lot of videos about global consciousness, about the field of universal coherence that we have.
Yeah.
So that's what I spent a lot of time focusing on this week was how do we share the message that our energy is contagious? How do I share the message that what you feel right there sitting in your living room is going to have a ripple effect in the whole world. So that
Yeah.
was kind of my focus this week. And this next week, I have to do I want to do some meditations because I want to amplify that a little bit. So
Hmm.
we'll see what next week's episode leads to.
Yeah. We'll see. All right. So, you have any closing thoughts, Dina? Any other thoughts about this topic or any other points you'd like to make?
Yes. Yes. All of you out there who are listening who feel like you have had maybe possibly a teeny bit of a weird experience, yes, you probably did. You most definitely did.
Hmm.
And you're not crazy. In fact, you're unlocking a gift. There's the universe is tapping on your shoulder saying, "Hey, hey, hey, wake up, we're right here." I would also say if you're afraid about talking about something like that, then send a private message because it sucks to feel like you're crazy. It also sucks
Definitely.
to not have anybody to talk to about it.
It
So
sucks to fit other people and other people call you crazy as well.
exactly, exactly. So know that you are not alone. And if you're out there going, "Hey, I wonder how come my dead father hasn't talked to me?" Well, maybe we'll do another episode here soon about how to develop our intuition,
Hmm.
how to unlock the gifts a little bit more. I would my closing advice for somebody in that situation would be start being open-minded to it. What if it's been right in front of you this whole time?
Yeah, I feel like women are a little bit more naturally intuitive as well. Like I haven't really unlocked any of those gifts yet, but I'm still very open to it. But women seem to be more intuitively inclined, definitely.
It could be. I don't know why necessarily, because I think we're all souls. You know, I'm not even necessarily sure that in the whole reincarnation theory, are we always reincarnated women?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either. I think that I've been the masculine, feminine, you know, I believe that I've probably been every race under the sun.
Hmm.
I don't believe I think that we are all one soul and that we are all facets of the divine.
Hmm.
So whether you're a man or a woman, being that we're all facets of the design the divine, I think we all have that ability. You know, as I was talking about limiting beliefs and your brain filtering things out, maybe that's something that gets in men's way, is being told that women are more spiritual or being told that women are more intuitive. If you think that, your brain's going to act accordingly.
Right. The logical side of you is going to shut that down.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. You know, so if you were to start setting that aside for a second and saying, you know, instead of being a man, instead of being logical, I'm a spirit.
Hmm.
Let me connect with my source. Let me put those beliefs aside that society has put on me
Yep.
and understand we are all one. And
That's
whatever's limiting somebody is your own head, because we weren't born with limitations to spirit.
none at all.
Mm-mm.
No. I was thinking also maybe every now and then we can do like a meditation, like a short meditation for folks they can start
I'd love to.
practicing.
I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
I've all sorts of ideas about directions we can take this conversation. So yeah.
Okay, I've got tons of ideas about that too. You know, when it comes to meditation, I think people have this idea of what it's supposed to be, sitting there
Hmm.
in your mind, bull, you know, zenning out. And that's one out of like 1,000 different ways
Yep.
that you can learn, that you can meditate. And the reason why meditation is crucial, not just for unlocking spiritual gifts, but for your well-being, for your physical well-being, for your mental health, is because meditation teaches you to control your head. You know, in my coaching business, I can't even tell you how many times people are like, I just can't stop the thoughts, or I don't know why I keep thinking this. Well, hello, who's running the show there? You are.
Exactly.
You know, if you have thoughts that you can't control, there's a problem, because it means that nobody's running the ship up there. So meditation really helps you tighten your muscle control, your mental control of your own thoughts. And it's just crucial for your mental well-being, for your spiritual well-being. And, you know, since we're talking specifically about opening up other gifts, absolutely, absolutely helps with that. And it doesn't have
Hmm.
to be a huge thing either. You know, even 10 to 15 minutes a day is all that it takes.
Yep. That's all I do. It's
Yep.
having that practice is what's important.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, Dina. Well, it's been an enjoyable conversation. Please comment, like, or subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions for Dina or myself.
More ideas.
What's that?
Give us more ideas.
Exactly. Yes, we need more ideas. We love to interact with you. Yeah, but come back for another conversation next week. And I thank you so much. It's the Monty channel and Dina, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.